Today let's balance the leg side to side. Last week I shared how to balance the leg front leg to back leg, and if you take a look here, I shared what to do if you look at your side view and you can literally see from the bottom of your behind to the back of your knee is much shorter than the front leg is. That kind of balancing front to back. You can see how much shorter the back leg looks. The other thing is, if you put a pair of ready-to-wear jeans or pants on when you're looking at yourself in the mirror, many times the wrinkles in those ready-to-wear pants, or it could even be a pair of pants that you made before that, previously that you weren't happy with, look and see what those wrinkles are telling you. You can see here all the extra vertical length on the back leg from this side view. So now I want to talk about something a little bit different. If you have the kind of shape that your side seam angles from your full hip down to your knee, creating an angle on the side seam, and your inseam is straight, you may need to balance the side and inseams in a similar way. Now, this can happen when you have inward rotating knees, or if you have prominent inner thighs that touch all the way down to the knee. What happens is that seam is basically straight because it's following the line of your leg. And then if you have an out seam or a side seam that's angling up towards either a fuller hip or just angling in to inward rotating knees, then what happens is your side seam becomes too short compared to your inseam. Take a look at this front view photo. This is the same student that I worked with that also needed to balance the front and back leg as well. You can see here the angle of her side seam is pretty significant, and that line is longer than her straight inseam. So let me show you how to adjust for this. Okay, I've got my back leg here. Okay, and you're going to need to do this to your front and your back leg. I'm starting with the back leg. And what I want to do here is I want to draw myself a guideline, maybe, 2 inches from the tip of the crotch. So below crotch level, I'm just going to go ahead and draw myself a line like this. And in this instance, instead of slashing across and pivoting on either side, we're going to pivot in the middle of the leg. So our pivot is going to be right here. And what we're going to do is we're going to lengthen the side seam and shorten the inseam at the same time. And it's going to draw the leg in a little bit to create a shape that will help fit the situation where your side seam is longer than your inseam. So I'm going to go ahead and cut into the middle, and then I'm going to leave a little pivot, and I'm going to cut all the way to the other side. And you can see what we can do now is we can go like this, right? So depending on your differences, I would say, to shorten your inseam, up to maybe a 1/2 inch or so, maybe a little bit more, depending on how much difference you have here. So I'm going to go ahead and make myself a guide like that. So I'm going to put a piece of paper underneath my leg, and I'm just going to slide the inseam down, shortening it like this. Okay. And you can see what happens when we do that. The side seam opens. So you can see here now we've got a situation where this is opened. Okay, so we've added length there, and we've actually shortened like this here. Okay, the other thing you're going to notice is the grain line is now messed up. So I'm going to reestablish it from below the grain line. So I'm going to go ahead and just go like this. So our grain line is now straight again, and we've lengthened here, we've shortened here. So I'm just going to go ahead and, you know, just also true that up a little bit. All right, so we've done nothing to this other than changing the balance side to side. So if you do it in the back, you have to do it in the front, and what you really have to pay attention to is that you make the same change here and here, because those sew together. So I'm going to go ahead and get my front leg out, and I'm going to draw my guideline. And I've got my pivot. I've got my paper, so I'm going to go ahead and go right into the middle, hop over, and then do that. So again, I've got a nice, you know, pivot. I'm going to put paper under there, and let's make sure that our side seam pops open the same amount. So I'm just going to measure how much it popped open. So that's 3/8 of an inch. So I'm going to make sure when I pivot the front, it pops open the same 3/8 of an inch. And what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to take my paper, I'm going to pivot this up like this, and I'm just going to mark 3/8 of an inch so I get the right, you know, the right amount. Oops. Make sure I get the right amount here, and my pivot broke, but that is not a big deal. I'm still going to pivot it right from that center, and I'm going to open it the same amount as I have on my back leg. So right there. I'm going to overlap the inseam a similar amount. So again, you can see we added there, and we shortened here. So we've added all of this, shorten that, and again, I'm just going to fix my grain line. Okay, I've adjusted both of my legs, so you might want to walk it and just make sure your side and inseams match. And you can walk just from the knee up. So like, let's pretend, you know, this is my knee line. This is a short leg, but just to show you, let's pretend this is my knee line on both patterns. Inch and a quarter, inch and a quarter. You just need to walk up. So if I cut this, I'm going to cut this side seam off here. So all I would have to do is line up the knee line right here, you know, and then just walk up and make sure the side seams still match. All right, so when I get to the top, you can see, okay, that matches. And then you might want to also check your inseam. And again, you're going to start, I'm just going to cut this off here. So I'm lining up my knee right there, and I'm just walking it up. All right, and you can see that, you know, I might have to stretch that back up just a little bit. It's okay if your back inseam is slightly shorter than your front, but we're pretty close there. You know, it's almost. So double check and make sure you can walk your seams and that they still agree, and then give that a try. But that's going to help reduce wrinkles on your leg because the fabric won't be pulling because your side seam needs to be longer and your inseam needs to be shorter. So I hope this little tutorial helps. If you're enjoying my content, consider liking and subscribing to my channel. I want to thank everybody for taking the time to watch, and have a wonderful rest of your day.